Hello and welcome to This Week in Triathlon. It is October 2nd, and we are just 10 days away from my favorite day of the year, Kona, where 2,000 athletes will be going for their chance to win bowls just like this on the big island of Hawaii. Andreas and I, we are your co-hosts, and we will be coming to you live from the big island. How you doing, Andreas?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. As a matter of fact, was just checking the weather for the big island, so we'll be talking about that and a bunch of other things during this show that we're strictly dedicating to the World Championships.
Well, speaking of weather, that's one thing we can kind of jump into with the Big Island. It's probably one of the few places in the entire world where you actually really don't even need to check a weather forecast. Surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, it's really the only place in the country that's never hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Even though they always say how hot it is in the lava fields, the air temperature's never gotten above 100 degrees. On the island of Hawaii, believe it or not. Maybe if you measured the asphalt or measured the lava, it is hot, it is humid, I'm not going to lie, but it is remarkably consistent. And the only variables that really ever change are whether or not the clouds are going to come off the volcano. They kind of tease the athletes with this cloud, and you're going to see it, Andreas, when we get out there. But if the cloud cover comes over the course, it tends to be a little bit faster day. If the clouds stay up on the mountain and it stays sunny in town, it tends to be a hot and brutal day. So it's going to be fun. But before we jump into this week's action, we want to just bring in one of our supporters of This Week in Triathlon, Mark Shiflett from Slick Lube. Slick Lube makes a number of high-quality, natural-based, plant-based lubricants. They're based out of the American Northeast, and they're co-founded by some chemical engineers, mechanical engineers from the university out there. And we have a couple words with Mark we want to just show. And let that B-roll roll, Andreas.
We're here with Mark Shiflett from Slick Lube. Mark, tell us a little bit about your lubes. We have about 5 minutes. It's a really cool product. I don't want to start getting into it. I'll let you do the talking. But it's a food-grade product. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we're a new product. We manufacture a bicycle chain lubricant. We have 3 different viscosities. Our light oil is a 50 centipoise lubricant, and a lot of people like this in dry, dusty conditions. And then we have another lubricant, which is 100 centipoise, twice as thick, and guys riding road bikes really like this one. They use it year-round. And then we have an even higher viscosity. This one's 200 centipoise. This one is our extreme. And people riding mountain bikes, particularly here in the Northeast, really like this. And we launched these products at Interbike last year. We're in probably about 100 bike stores here in the Northeast. And one of the things that was really important to us is developing a bike lubricant that was both bio-derived as well as had high performance and was safe. And so these lubricants are the first ones on the market that are actually certified by the USDA for their bio-based content. So for example, the Slick Lube Original 100, this is 96% bio-based. It has about 4% of polymer in there to give it good adhesion to the chain and good performance. And we're also the only bicycle lubricant on the market right now that is certified by the NSF as H1 food grade, meaning that it comes in contact with your hands, especially if you're a mechanic working with bikes all day long, and then you stop to have something to eat, that if you have any lubricant on your hands, it's still safe in terms if it comes in contact with your food. So a lot of the bike mechanics that are working in bike shops really appreciate the safety aspects that we're bringing to bicycle lubricants, as well as the bio-derived nature, and then finally the performance. We've sold thousands of bottles of this since Interbike last year, and we have gotten nothing but compliments on the performance. So we've been very happy about that. And so we're looking forward to a great year in 2014.
Mark, just real quick, I obviously have a bottle of this, so The first question I have to ask is if I'm mistaken this for my olive oil when I'm making my next salad, I'm okay? That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people tease us about that, and I mean, we've all taken a little taste. It's pretty bitter, so I wouldn't recommend it on your food, but certainly it won't harm you. And a funny story is we had been selling for probably a few months, and we had somebody contact us and said, "Hey, my dog just ate a bottle of my Slick Lube. Is there anything I should be concerned about?" And we said, no, it should just pass on through. And sure enough, we followed up the next day, and the dog was fine, and it was as expected.
Okay, well, in all seriousness, if you go online and you look at lubes on a bike shop, or you go in your local bike shop and you see kind of a wall of lubes, you see high viscosity, medium viscosity, low viscosity, you see wax, PTFE,
Yep.
things like that. Break it down for me. Why do you actually need lube on your bike, and why do you need different lubes for different bikes, different conditions, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would say is starting with a wet lubricant, that's what these are. These are going to adhere well to the chain, and the purpose is really to reduce friction and also to allow the mechanism of the chain and the cassette to function properly and smoothly. And so one thing that we're doing currently is we have tests going on where we're measuring what's called the coefficient of friction, and we will soon be able to tell you exactly how many watts you lose when you're using a lubricant. And we're getting ready to publish some of those results, and I think people will be interested to see, in terms of, especially like a triathlete, if you use one lubricant versus another, how many seconds that could translate into a race for you.
It's actually really cool, and I know we've talked about that in the past, and I know Kevin recently got a chain that was supposed to save him 5 watts for Lake Tahoe. So yes, for triathletes and roadies alike. Where can people find out more information and keep in touch about that sort of those sort of developments?
Yep, so they can go to our website. Our website is www.slicklube.com, and we're going to start to post information about that on our website under the tab called Slick Science. Everybody that works at our parent company, SMF Science, are either engineers or chemists, and so we're going to start to post some of that information on our website, and eventually we're going to write some articles that we're going to put out in Velo News and Bicycling Magazine and some other bicycling journals.
Well, I say it, I know Kevin feels the same way, but we appreciate you partnering with us for our Kona bottle giveaway. I know that people are excited about that. We'll be handing out samples of Slick Lube at Bikeworks in Kona next week, and we'll be announcing exactly the time. But thanks for the time, thanks for the information, and we'll be giving out more detail throughout the rest of the show about the bottles, and certainly we'll keep pumping up the product in future shows, Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Okay, so we had a couple minutes there with Mark, and Andreas and I are looking forward to actually bringing some of these bottles with us to Hawaii to actually give away on the Thursday or Friday before the race. We're going to be handing out This Week in Triathlon specialized Purist water bottles along with some Slick Lube. For those that like our Facebook page, This Week in Triathlon, you can always find out what's going on in This Week in Triathlon on our Facebook page. It's probably the best place to get updates and information. Also follow us on YouTube and Twitter as well. So Andreas, the whole season's been kind of building towards this one race. Obviously, This Week in Triathlon, we focus more on Ironman and long-distance triathlon, but this is really it. Everything's been building up for this, and I know I'm pumped. What do we got for favorites?
Well, you probably know who my favorite is. I've got a little bit of a bias, but if I put him aside, and I'm talking about Mr. Sebastian Kienle, I think he's had bad luck on the Ironman racing. He's had a little bit of bad luck. He crashed at Frankfurt a couple years back. it still was able to finish the race. He flatted at Ironman Arizona, and of course he flatted last year at Hawaii. So I'm not counting, of course, Challenge Roth, as it's theoretically or technically it's not an Ironman race, but he's done quite well, finishing both times in under 8 hours. But Sebastian Kienle is the person I'm talking about. Putting him aside, somebody I've not really been hearing much about recently over on the men's side is Eneko Llanos. He had a fantastic beginning of the year. He's really kind of flown under the radar, so I'm going to keep an eye on him. I'm going to keep an eye on Freddie Van Lierde, and I'm going to keep an eye on Bevan Doherty. So those, I think, out of those four, one of those is going to win, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're all on the podium.
Yes, it's interesting what you mentioned, and this is very subtle and I think very key for our favorites at Kona. It's the people that have been off the radar for the last several months. You mentioned Freddie Van Lierde. There's others there, Andreas Raylert. Sebastian Kienle was off the radar until he just won 70.3 Worlds. You have guys like Andreas Raylert, like I mentioned. Pete Jacobs has not really raced much until just recently. They're on the Sunshine Coast where he just won a 70.3 in 3 hours and 39 minutes. It's a good thing to actually be under the radar. You don't want to see guys racing their brains out, wasting up their energy, missing their key training blocks, because if you want to do well at Kona, you need consistent training. You know, we're talking 12, 16, 20 weeks of just purely dedicated focus on this one specific race. And the people you've seen bouncing around the world, you know, accumulating points and prize money, are not going to be the people that you're going to see coming out of Energy Lab with the motorcycles and the contingent of people following them. So people like Caroline Steffen, in my opinion, I don't think really she's obviously a stud, and she's, you know, has done well in the past at Kona, but I don't think we're going to see her win the race because she just raced Metaman last month. That's going to put a huge strain on your body. Anybody that, in my opinion, that's racing Ironman in the last month, really, you know, they get bumped way down the back of the list as far as I'm concerned.
So what you're saying is you're not going to be contending for the big prize. But all joking aside, you mentioned Caroline Steffen. I'm looking right now. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but Lava Magazine on their latest issue handicaps the race, and they actually have her as the favorite, which a 5-to-1 favorite. So I guess she's co-favorites with Mirinda Carfrae. But I tend to agree with you that she's, as well as she's done in the past, and she tends to be a little bit of a workhorse. She's probably not going to fare so well after racing Metaman last month. So it sounds like we're in agreement on that regards. But talk a little bit about Mirinda. I know you like her.
Yeah, I do like Rinny. I know she is now on the Big Island. I saw some pictures of her on a new Felt IA time trial bike. She's coached by Siri Lindley out of Boulder. I know she's had a couple months of really good training leading up to this. Last year, she was in a good position to win the race, but apparently she lost some of her nutrition on the bike, and apparently that derailed a lot of her nutrition plans. And if that happens to you in an Ironman race, if you're not able to collect yourself and get your nutrition in, you know, it's going to affect you 7-8 hours into the race, which is exactly what happened. Coming into Energy Lab, she was closing within just a couple meters of Leanda Cave, and absolutely just blew up. It looked like Rinny had the race in the bag and just wasn't able to catch Leanda. On a good day, Rinny would make mincemeat of Leanda on the run, to be honest. Rinny's probably one of the best marathoners we've ever seen on the Big Island, so whenever she's within a minute or two of the lead, you know, it's usually safe to say that the race is over. But last year she blew up. But you know, she's back with Siri this year. She's training hard right now. Siri's actually got 5 athletes that, you know, could be in the top 10 at Kona, which is kind of ridiculous. She's got a big stable of athletes with Leanda, Rinny, Yvonne Van Vlerken, Rebecca Keat, and Dr. Amanda Stevens. So I know they're all training together right now. And I don't know how Siri manages that stable just with all that firepower on the women's side. If you think about it, I mean, that's like almost all of the women's favorites are under the tutelage of Siri Lindley. It's pretty crazy and impressive.
You know, you mentioned, and if you look at the Kona handicap that Lava put out, they have 7 media polls. I didn't know that there were 7 media outlets that cover triathlon. We didn't get a call, right, about who the favorites were. So we don't know who these media outlets are. But they don't have Yvonne Van Vlerken on there. They have a couple of players on there that I think are not going to factor in. Mary Beth Ellis, obviously she was on there because she was a favorite, but this was prior to her having the accident. The other person that they have on there that decided she wasn't racing Kona a while ago was Corinne Abraham. I mean, she's been out for a while, and they do seem to be giving Leanda Cave a little bit of the treatment that Sebastian got prior to 70.3 Worlds, which is essentially that she's not going to win it again. What do you think about her? I don't think this year is going to be Leanda's year again.
You know, it's really easy to say that, and it was really easy to say that, you know, going into 70.3 Worlds last year. You know, what Leanda had done recently was nil. Had a weak, anemic early season, had some injuries, and kind of the same thing this year. She seems to be basing her entire season on this race. So she's a great swimmer, one of the best open water swimmers in the sport. She'll be really close to Amanda Stevens, I think, coming out of the water. The one weakness I see her having right now, at least I've seen in races with her, is her bike strength. Her bike needs to be stronger because she needs to be able to hang on close to the front of the race until coming out of T2, because she's not the best runner in the sport. So she needs to ride with the best cyclists to have a chance on the run, to stay ahead of the likes of Mirinda Carfrae and athletes like that. She needs to have a gap. So she needs to ride strong, but I'm not going to write Leanda Cave off by any means. With that kind of talent, that kind of pedigree, obviously, you know, she hasn't done a lot this year, admittedly, but you know, she's focused on this race, and she's one focused chick. You know, with wearing those visors and those Oakleys, that she's almost impermeable to anything, it seems like, on the race course. I'm looking forward to seeing the Terminator Leanda Cave in action.
And of course, you don't want to pick against her or write her off, because you most likely will see her at some point training with Siri. No, I mean, I know you put your handicapper hat on when you give these predictions and put that aside. So I guess we'll agree to disagree on that. I think if I were a betting man, I probably would steer away from Leanda this year. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and before we move over back to the men's side of things, is there a name out there on the women's field that you feel that we've not really heard of that we will hear about?
Heather Wurtell, absolutely.
But we've heard about her, and I guess I do agree with you that she'll probably have a great race. But is there somebody who even more so than Heather Wurtell is a bit of an underdog that may not necessarily win the race, but will do really well at Kona?
You know, I don't think so. You know, very rarely do you have someone like Corinne Abraham, who stepped up earlier in the year, who I thought was the favorite for Kona after dominating Melbourne. But obviously she's injured. She's going to miss Kona. And it always seems like to be like the usual suspects. You know, maybe there's a flash in the pan early in the swim, early in the bike. And then it seems to really straighten itself out where, you know, you have those handful of athletes that are the usual suspects and people that race well at Kona. So no, I don't think there is going to be any surprises on the women's side.
Now, going back to the men's, you know, we talked about Freddie Van Lierde, we talked about Eneko Llanos, we talked about Sebastian, we talked about those guys that have stayed off the radar at the beginning of the year. Anybody on that side, actually before we go there, what's going to be the highest American placing? What do you feel is going to be like? I don't think any of them are going to crack the top 8, to be honest.
You know, I think top 8 could happen. You have guys, we have a couple guys there, Jordan Rapp, we have Ben Hoffman, Tim O'Donnell, and Andy Potts. Those are really the top 4 Americans. I think that the top Americans probably going to be either Jordan Rapp or Timothy O'Donnell, Mirinda Carfrae's husband, just because they seem to race a little bit better in the heat. They're a little bit leaner. Andy Potts is a taller guy. He's very lean, but a little bit taller, a little bit too big to do well in Hawaii. He usually comes out of the water with the lead and then loses the bike lead, kind of turning on Kauai high. So, you know, those 4 guys, Ben Hoffman did not do race well. I actually beat him as an amateur in 2010. He seemed to explode on the run. So he really has yet to prove himself. So yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to say any Americans are going to crack the top 5. If anyone does it, I think it's Tim O'Donnell or Jordan Rapp, who needs to recover from his injury he had on the bike in Los Angeles just a couple of weeks ago.
You know, Kona seems to be so much about, and you can attest to this because you had a flat tire and you had to ride, I think, like 10 or 5, 10 or 15 miles back into transition with a flat tubular. But Kona seems to be so much about managing what goes wrong throughout the ride. I mean, throughout the race, excuse me. But it seems like always something goes awry and you have to manage it. And I don't know if Jordan Rapp, not to pick on him, but I don't know that he is the best at necessarily getting over those little hurdles. I mean, he's got a very specific plan, from what I understand, that he likes to stick with, and if anything doesn't go according to plan, he has a little bit of a hard time adjusting to it. So, I mean, you can attest to, like we said, something's going to go wrong. It's just how you deal with it.
Yeah, unfortunately for the pro men's field, if anything seriously goes wrong, if you have a flat tire and you can't change it extremely quickly, if your nutrition doesn't go according to plan, your race is pretty much over if you're talking about the top 3 guys, just because there's almost zero margin for error. When you have guys like Pete Jacobs and Sebastian Kienle and Craig Alexander, you have any problems, and you're just done, especially on the bike. Jordan Rapp, going back to him, he's not going to be coming out of the swim most likely with the leaders, but he's going to have to race his own race. He's used to it. He's won races on his own, so he's one of those guys that can be on his own for 5-6 hours and then run his way up into the top 10. So we've seen him do it before. We saw him almost do it last year. In terms of getting the top 10, so no disrespect to Jordan at all, but he's going to be on his own a lot. But that's what he does, and he's strong. So,
any players out there that we don't necessarily know much about in the U.S. that may pull, that may actually end up doing well, not necessarily winning, but may end up doing well?
Yeah, a name a lot of people might not be familiar with. Some of the diehard fans will be, but Andrew Starykowicz of Illinois. This is a guy that you are going to see turn himself inside out on the bike. I've kind of come to the conclusion that we're going to see Andrew Starykowicz with the bike lead coming out of T2. He is an incredible swimmer. He is probably the best cyclist. Right there with Sebastian Kienle vying for that. We're going to find out. We're not going to be talking about it anymore. We're going to see it on the 12th. Who's the strongest cyclist in the sport? Is it Kienle or is it Starykowicz? Who's the better racer? Kienle has shown that he's a dominant racer. He's got the total package. He's got the run. Starykowicz has yet to show that in the heat, and I think he will fade on the run. But I don't think Starykowicz is going to wait for Kienle. I think he's going to want that glory. We haven't really had a superstar American cyclist in the sport. It's always been the Germans, but this year I think the Americans are going to have some pride, some muscle. Andrew Starykowicz is not a small guy. He's a pretty ripped, big guy, and I think we're going to see him rip some legs off on the bike. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens and how that changes the dynamics. Can Kienle catch him? Will Kienle drag the field up to him? It's going to be a really fascinating race to watch. But Starykowicz, unfortunately, he's going to blow himself up on the bike, and you don't need a Ouija board. You don't need a magic 8-ball to figure that out. If you've seen what happened to him when he raced Abu Dhabi for a couple of years there, forgetting the fact that he ran into a spectator, almost died, or almost killed a spectator, he's always kind of blown up in the heat. He comes from Chicago. He comes from up north. He's a bigger guy. So it's tough for someone like that to do well in the heat, and I think we're going to see him, unfortunately, not be able to hold that lead. But I can't wait to see him put 5-10 minutes into guys on the bike. It's going to be a spectacle to watch.
The more you're talking about this, the more excited I'm getting about going over to Kona and watching the race, because we talk so much about Sebastian and how strong of a cyclist he is. I mean, not only us. I mean, I think everybody is just kind of looks at him as this uber biker guy. And can you imagine on Sunday if there's Andrew Starykowicz who just shreds the legs off of this guy who everybody thinks is just like the uber biker of uber bikers? I think that'd be awesome. Like you said, I don't think it's going to translate into a win, but it could be one of those epic, I don't know, threads on Slow Twitch for years to come about, who the cyclist of cyclists is. And, so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, and very, very rarely does someone like Kienle or Starykowicz or Hellriegel, guys like that come along, like guys like Chris Lieto. It's fun to see them just take off and put time into people. It animates the race, and it doesn't take anything away from it. So it's going to add some drama. It's going to add some flair, and I can't wait to watch it happen live.
Yes, and we have a lot planned for the week and for the race. We'll be posting some content as the week progresses, but also we'll probably have a lot of stuff. So I think if we said that by Sunday everything will be up and running, I think we might be a little bit too optimistic on that end. But I'm really excited on that end that we'll have a lot of first-hand experience, and we'll be talking to a lot of people, hopefully taking a lot of pictures, shooting a lot of video. Like you said earlier, we're partnering with Slick Lube and handing out co-branded Purist bottles at Bikeworks Kona, which is a shop located near where all of the action happens. I'm excited. I mean, I next week can't get here soon enough. I haven't picked out my underwear yet for the underwear run. I don't know if you have, but I'll be there for sure. I don't know if I'll be participating, but I'll have to take it in somehow.
Well, I'm not going to make a comment on that. I'm going to let it be a surprise and leave it up to the imagination of our viewers. But one thing I did want to make a point of is that I actually bought a special case. I mentioned it to you earlier. I texted you. I bought a case on Amazon that actually extends the life of my battery by 100%. So last thing I want is for our This Week in Triathlon viewers to be without the updates on Twitter and Facebook during race day. So I'm absolutely committed to bringing you the live updates, the best live updates I possibly can. So I'm looking forward to it.
Now, show me the phone again. Is the case on, or is that just your phone? Because if it is, that's a pretty slim case.
No, I just ordered it, so it's not on the phone yet.
Oh, okay. Now, do you have any plans of attending? Do you plan on swimming any on the course? I mean, from what I understand, there's a island coffee stand or something like that.
Well, there's Island Lava Java, which if you've been to Hawaii, Lava Java is kind of like in Seinfeld, that coffee shop that you see in the show. It's always in the show. Lava Java is kind of the place to be, the meeting grounds. They really amp up their service and food for that race, so it's actually pretty close to where you and I are staying. So we'll be getting a lot of breakfast, lunch, and dinners there. And I do look forward to actually training. I'm not going to bring a bike out, but I'm going to bring my running shoes. And I'm actually coming off of an Ironman, as some of our viewers might know. I just raced Tahoe just a few weeks ago. And getting into this week's triathlon tip, I'm still in recovery mode, but I'm actually kind of in between two races. On one side, I just did Tahoe, have a ton of fitness. I'm trying to maintain as much as I can for another month until Ironman Florida on November 2nd. So my tip this week is I'm on week 2 of kind of my recovery from Tahoe, and I actually took all of last week almost entirely off. I did a little bit of light riding, but that was it. And I think kind of the general rule for me is for at least 2 weeks you train how you feel. You do what you want to do. If you want to go run 2 hours or 3 hours, go knock yourself out. But the chances are you're probably not going to want to. I don't want to right now. I'm training once, twice a day, and I'm definitely not losing any fitness. If anything, I'm just trying to maintain what I have. I'm getting a lot of sleep right now. I'm trying to go to bed around like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock every night so I can get 8, 9 hours of sleep every single night. If I can take a nap, just to get those hormones pumping, get that testosterone, that HGH while I'm sleeping, because that's what really enhances your recovery. So I'm trying to eat really good, and I'm trying not to gain any of that weight back. Usually I can gain about 10 or 15 pounds just looking at a bag of donuts. So I'm trying to make sure I stay lean because I know it helps. And that's really my advice. And then with about a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to go before Florida, I'll probably have about 10 days of pretty intense training, and then it's time to taper again. So that's how I'm approaching Ironman Florida. But yeah, on the Big Island, it's going to be fun to kind of test my mettle a little bit on the run. I'm going to psych some people out on Elite Drive. They think I'm racing on Friday, the day before the race. I'm going to do some mile repeats on Elite Drive. And maybe put some fake race numbers on my arm so people are like thinking, what's this crazy bastard doing? He's not saving himself for the race.
I think that would be a great prank, and I think we've talked about it before. Just because when you were there last, you said that there's some people just doing some crazy stuff so close to race day, which seems pretty absurd. But you know, I like I said, I'm looking forward to it. Actually, maybe I'll tag along on one of these runs and see how far I can catch up, or I can keep up, and maybe psych some people out as well. But Kevin, we have about a minute left. Anything else you want to add? I mean, it's just next week can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, the one thing I want to add to our viewers is if you want an interview with a specific athlete or coach or potentially a vendor, maybe a bike manufacturer, bike designer, if there's anything you want to see from the Big Island, just ask on Facebook or Twitter. Just post a message. What do you want to see on the Big Island? Because we got our cameras, we're mobile, and we're happy to indulge you. So if you want to an interview with Siri Lindley, for instance, or maybe a picture or an interview with Mirinda Carfrae, we'll try to make that happen. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. So hit us up, and we're gonna make it a fun time.
Well, that's awesome, and great. Actually, a great way to connect with us, and I don't know, maybe we should get a Twitter account going for Hawaii so that people can follow us, but we'll see you guys next week.